We're ending the month of February with an all-time classic horror film, because at the Channel Point's request of Dylan today, we're going to look at Carnival of Souls, released in 1962. Carnival of Souls is an independent horror film shot entirely in black and white, directed by Herc Harvey and written by John Clifford. The film follows a woman named Mary Henry, played by Candice Hilligoss, whose life is disturbed and starts seeing random strange figures after she miraculously survives a car accident. The main one of those ghouls, simply known as the Man, is actually played by the director Herc Harvey. This was shot on a budget of $33,000, which granted today is equivalent to about $307,000, and it was Harvey's only feature film. At the time it was released, it did not gain much of any attention, and it was actually released as a double feature alongside The Devil's Messenger, which has been largely forgotten. The film has since attracted a massive cult following, however, and is now seen as one of the better horror films ever made. It also had a big influence on numerous filmmakers, including George Romero and David Lynch. This film's ending was also the originator of a classic horror movie cliche, which we'll get to in a bit. But at a runtime of just 80 minutes, this movie did not waste any time at all, so neither will we, as we review Carnival of Souls, released in 1962. So our film begins in Kansas with Mary Henry and two of her friends drag racing two other dudes across a crickety old bridge. Mary's friend loses control, however, and they go off the bridge into the water down below. The police begin a search but can't find their car and they're all presumed dead, but then out of nowhere, Mary emerges from the water seemingly completely unharmed. And then just a day later, Mary decides that she's had just about enough of Kansas and decides to move to Utah to become a church organist. While she's driving there, she's drawn to an old pavilion out in the distance and also sees visions of a man first in her side window and then right in front of her, which sends her into a ditch. She eventually pulls up at a gas station and asks the attendant about the old pavilion, who tells her that it used to be a bathhouse and then a dance hall and finally then a carnival before it was closed down and abandoned. Mary then arrives in Utah and rents a room at a shared house owned by a Mrs. Thomas, who tells her there's only one other lodger there, a man named John Linden. And as Mary's unpacking, she again sees the man staring at her through her window. She then goes to the church and meets the minister, who I'm not sure if they ever gave a name to, and begins to practice on the organ as the man enters the church, unbeknownst to her. She finds herself looking out the window in a trance and then asks the minister to take her to that old pavilion. She wants to go inside, but the minister tells her that she can't as it's against the law, and as they're going away, the man is once again looking at her through the pavilion. Mary then arrives back home, and having not eaten anything, Mrs. Thomas offers to bring her some dinner. She gets a knock on the door after she gets out of the bath, and it's revealed to not be Mrs. Thomas, but actually John Linden, who, not gonna lie, gives off major rapist vibes. He tries very unsuccessfully to hit on her, which she very quickly shoots down. Mary then gets a weird feeling and goes out of her room and looks down to see the man sitting in the hotel lobby. She believes he's coming up to her room, but when she opens the door, it's just Mrs. Thomas. She tells Miss Thomas about the man, but Mrs. Thomas insists that she didn't see anybody, and it's probably just Mary's imagination. The next morning, Mary's in a better mood and has coffee with John before going to a department store to buy a new dress. While taking off the dress, however, she has another eerie feeling and then goes to try to buy it, but finds that nobody can see or hear her, and in fact, while she can see everybody, she can't hear a thing herself. This continues until she goes to a local park and touches a tree, at which her sound comes back. She goes to get a drink of water and looks up to see the man staring right at her, and she then runs into a Dr. Samuel, who assures her that that man is just some random dude. She then goes to Dr. Samuel's office and he tells her that it's likely all in her head and just her imagination, probably as a result of trauma because of her car accident. She shrugs this advice off, but does agree with him when he mentions that maybe the pavilion is connected to her thoughts somehow, so she decides to go there again and check it out. Mary explores the whole place and aside from some creepy mattress using the slide, doesn't find anything. She then skips a rock into the water, which unbeknownst to her, lands on the man, who's sleeping. She then goes home and is unsuccessfully hit on again by John, but then gives in and decides to go out with him after she's done with organ practice. And while she's practicing the organ, she seemingly loses control of her hands and feet and goes into a trance and starts playing some demonic music. She then has a vision of the man and a bunch of other ghouls dancing at the carnival. She's snapped out of this by the minister, who says, "I can't believe you're playing this here devil music. You must reside from the church because we don't like that devil organ music here." So she just leaves. She then has a very awkward date with John where she doesn't say much of anything and greatly frustrates him, but she decides to slightly give in to his advances as she doesn't want to be alone. They then go back home and back to her room where he's trying to make a move on her, but then she sees the man in the mirror. She begs John not to leave her alone, but he's like, "Nah, you crazy, I'm out of here." Mary then decides, "You know what, that's a hell of an idea, I'm out of here too," and decides to leave Utah altogether. She goes to get her car's transmission fixed first though, and as she's in the car, the attendant leaves and someone else enters the room. And it's indeed the man who yoinks her out of her car, and she makes a break for it. She then makes her way to a bus station where she once again finds that she can't hear anybody and she's basically invisible. She only hears an intercom calling her to the number 9 bus, but when she tries to get on it, it's full of ghouls. After running all around town, she finally makes her way back to that park and touches the tree, where once again things go back to normal. She then goes to see Dr. Samuels again, and as he turns around, uh-oh, it's the man, and uh-oh, surprise, it was all a dream. She's still in the car. She then decides, alright, fuck this, I'm going back to the carnival, and seemingly once again re-entering a trance, makes her way in. She looks into the water where she sees the ghouls and the man rising out, and then suddenly they're back in the dance hall, and they begin to do a waltz. She then notices, though, that the man is dancing with a ghoul that looks exactly like her, which makes her scream. This causes the ghouls to turn on her and chase her all the way down to a beach, where she finally trips and falls as they surround her. Dr. Samuels, the priest, and 2 police officers arrive at the beach, where they see her footprints, but then nothing else. We then go back to Kansas, where they finally find the car and drag it out of the water, and there's 3 bodies in there, including Mary's, as she was dead the entire time. So yes, that trope of the main character is actually dead, which has since been used in many movies including The Sixth Sense, was basically invented with this film. So if my understanding of this is correct, then the entire film was basically purgatory. It was her last gasp trying to avoid death while she was underwater. And of course, the ghouls finally catching up to her at the end finally represents her transitioning into the afterlife. It's also possible that she was alive underwater but just unconscious, and that this whole movie was a dream, her final dream, or maybe her final nightmare. And if that's the case, then technically there were dreams within the dream, which is pretty trippy. But then there's also some questions. Did the events actually happen then? Did it happen for the priest and Dr. Samuels and the homeowner and everybody like that? And John? Did it happen for them? Was she still in human form, but just fighting off ghostliness because of the purgatory? Who knows, but there's a lot of interpretations. One thing that I personally do not think is up for debate, though, is that this movie was awesome. It's very similar to Psycho in the sense that Psycho is credited for being the originator of slasher films. This should get a lot of credit as one of the originators for thriller horror. And it didn't need anything special to be scary. It didn't need a lot of money put into it or any special effects or any jump scares or anything like that. It was just good old-fashioned, naturally scary. The organ music used throughout the film, and the shots of the man randomly appearing, and the great acting by Candice Hillegloss to really sell what was going on, was just a perfect combination, which resulted in a genuinely good and genuinely scary film, especially if it's the first time you've seen it. Now, often before, I've talked about must-see lists if you're into certain genres. Well, if you're looking to get into horror, and more specifically, what has made horror, then I think this is an important one for you to watch. This is an all-timer. Rest in peace to Herc Harvey, by the way, who passed away in 1996, but Candice Hillegloss is actually still alive. She is now 86 years old. And this is actually only one of 2 film roles she ever did. She had a supporting role in The Curse of the Living Corpse in 1964, but that's it. And it's not often somebody has such a legacy for just basically making one film, but I can guarantee you she'll always have a legacy for this. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it for my review of Carnival of Souls. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Thank you, Dylan, for using your points on this. Much like last month, there will not be a review video next week at the beginning of March. However, be sure to check the channel back next Sunday, a week from today, to see what the schedule will be for March. But that is going to do it for me today. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave it a like. If you want to follow any of my social media links, they are all in the description down below. Thank you to all my patrons who are currently named in the description for supporting me and my channels. I appreciate you guys. With all that being said though, my name is Noah Taff. It's been my review of Carnival of Souls, released in 1962, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.